Okay, my dear fellow, what do you call that? People making progress. Welcome to another Stoic video where we go through the entire Hegemonikon by Epictetus in the translation How to Be Free by Professor A.A. Long, who's a very good speaker, by the way. If you want to have some fun, do a YouTube search for Tony Long, Stoicism, and then you'll find a very good lecture he gives. Okay, chapter 38. I like this one. You are careful in walking not to step on a nail or twist your ankle, and you should be just as careful to do no harm to your commanding faculty. If we stick to this rule in every action, we shall perform what we are doing more securely. The hell is a commanding faculty? Glad you asked. The commanding faculty, in Greek, Hegemonikon, is a crucial aspect of Stoicism. You may have noticed, if you've been watching these videos, or even better if you've been reading the books, the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the Enchiridion, possibly the Discourses by Epictetus, you may have noticed that Stoicism is a philosophy of rationality. That does not mean extirpating emotions, but it does mean thinking, thought, thinking about what you're doing. And as I've said many times before in the course of these videos, one of the central tenets of Stoicism is it's not the thing that upsets you, but it's how you think about it. And if you think in the correct way about something, you will not be upset. If you think in the wrong way about something, you're going to be depressed, anxious, upset, worried, all these things that you don't necessarily have to be and have to experience. Now, for all of that to work, there is what the Stoics what they would call commanding faculty. They wouldn't use those words because I didn't speak English, but they used Hegemonikon in Greek. Hegemonikon, a ruling faculty, something in your mind, right? That's the seat of rationality. Maybe this day and age we would call that the prefrontal cortex, right? The part of your brain that allows you to think rationally. I need some water, I'm sorry. And yes, this is a massive bottle of water. Okay, but I don't mind if you like it or not because I can't control what you're thinking. So, see what I did there? Okay, so Hegemonikon, the commanding faculty, call it your ratio, your sort of rational thought, right? The thought that allows you to step back and say, in a way this annoys me, but I know I shouldn't get upset. Or that was a really upsetting event in my life, but it will be okay. It will turn out okay because I can do this and this and that to change it, and I cannot change this and this and that, so I accept those things. This is very Stoic thinking, right? So this commanding faculty is very important. Now, I've been giving this chapter quite a bit of thought, and I think there's a couple of ways to interpret this and a couple of routes. I do say roots with OU, but I could also say routes if you prefer. There are a couple of routes you can take on interpreting this. First of all, there's the very physical analogy that Epictetus uses. When you are walking, you're careful not to step on a nail, twist your ankle, because you'll hurt your foot, you'll hurt your ankle, you won't be able to walk properly, and this is an issue. If you harm your commanding faculty in the same way, right, you will have trouble as well. Because if you somehow do something to your rationality, you will no longer be able to think properly, and if you cannot think properly, it becomes very difficult to be a Stoic, because you can no longer say, it's not the thing that bothers me, but how I think about it, because how I think about it is now compromised. Now, what could Epictetus be saying here? Well, there are a couple of ways you could harm your commanding faculty. Of course, especially given this analogy, physical harm comes to mind. If you develop some sort of brain disease, if you have a stroke, if you have anything that really harms your brain, of course thinking may or may not, depending on where the damage is, may become difficult. Well, that is incredibly unfortunate, but that is not necessarily something within our control, right? If you have a terrible accident and you develop brain damage, that's not within your control. If you have a genetic defect that allows you, or that makes you develop some sort of cognitive disease, that is not within your control. So I don't really want to talk about those things, because when that happens, that happens. And there isn't necessarily anything you can really do about it. So what I find a more interesting approach here is, how else, if you are not damaging the hardware, what else could you do? Well, you could harm the software, right? If your brain is fully intact, you may still not be able to reason properly. And the Stoics would say, yeah, you can't reason properly because you haven't made enough progress. You haven't worked on your Stoic thought enough. You don't understand how we reason about things. You don't understand basic Stoic principles. And the result of that is that, unfortunately, you cannot reason properly. And if you cannot reason properly, you will suffer. You'll be depressed, anxious, feel bad, etc., etc., etc. And that could be damage to your Hegemonikon as well, right? What's the solution? Well, in the mind of a Stoic, it would be simple. Stoicism is the solution. Or, if we slightly paraphrase the fantastic movie Cobra with Sylvester Stallone, I just need to think about how to paraphrase this. If wrong thoughts are a disease, let's make it even better. If that's the word I was looking for. If irrational thoughts are a disease, then Stoicism is the cure. That's what the Stoics would say. Right? We will help you. We will make you think better. But you have to stick to all of our principles. You cannot use a few and then not use the others. You have to use them all. So you could not damage your commanding faculty by reasoning properly. And that is something you have to learn. You are not born with that capacity. You need to learn how to reason properly, to learn that some things are not really a problem. Okay? You have to learn to reason properly, to figure out that maybe this is not something to get upset over. That takes time, and it takes effort, and it is not something that just comes naturally to everyone. Some people fall into Stoicism naturally. I've talked to a lot of people who say, well, actually, I've been already doing a lot of these things. Well, that's great, right? That means that if you want to be a Stoic, that's relatively easy for you, because you have that natural predisposition to already do a lot of these things. Some people are very shocked by Stoicism, but then later say, actually, it makes a lot of sense, but I now see that I have not done any of these things ever. Well, then it may take a little bit more work. So I think that you could say, that is the inability to reason properly may be the biggest harm to your commanding faculty that you can cure. If you've had some sort of accident and your brain is damaged, there may or may not be recovery. But everybody in the world can change the way they think. I'm not saying it would be easy, but you can. With enough practice and motivation, you can. You can do that. And that, I think, is what Stoicism is about. You learn a new way of approaching the good life, and as a result, you start to feel better. You become less distracted, and even better, less depressed, less anxious. You start to feel better. And I can say from experience, it really works. But it's effort. And then I think your Hegemonikon, your commanding faculty, heals, and you'll feel better. But, and that's kind of the point in this chapter, you have to be careful not to do harm, right? So how could you do harm if it's not physical damage? Well, again, you could damage the software. If you fall back into old patterns, or if you deliberately or non-deliberately reason incorrectly about something, your commanding faculty is damaged. I often find myself thinking about things and kind of working myself up and starting to feel bad, and that can affect my mood. And Stoicism has been very good in showing me how to snap out of that by thinking, wait, you're doing it again. We had two Dutch comedians who coined the neologism doom thinking, from quote and to be. And I love that expression, doom thinking, because that's what it is. Yeah, but she has not done this, and now this and that, and then he did that and that and that, and then you go down this, I'm sure you've experienced this, you go down this dark ravine into a very dark place where you feel terrible. And Stoicism can step in and say, nope, is this really a rational thought? Rational not meaning devoid of emotion, but is this a thought that will really help you get where you want to be? 9 out of 10 times no. Then change the thought and heal your Hegemonikon. And when you do that, you step up. You get out of that pit and you feel better. It really works. And that way you can repair your commanding faculty, right? You can do that. And unfortunately, some of us have not been so fortunate. We have developed throughout our lives, for different reasons, very faulty ways of reasoning. And then you can be a Stoic. And you can, to again use that software analogy, you can just rewrite the program. It will take some time, and it takes quite some coding, but you'll get there. And then you will feel better, and your Hegemonikon will be repaired. And it is within reach. If I can do it, then you can do that as well, right? Motivation, patience, and it'll work. But you have to stick to those Stoic principles. You cannot sometimes apply them and sometimes not apply them. You have to always apply them. That's the rules of the game. And that's it. And then, as Epictetus says, if we stick to this rule in every action, we shall perform what we are doing more securely. Yeah, because you are reasoning properly, right? You are reasoning in a way that allows you to deal with the challenges of life in such a way that they disturb you as little as they can. I won't say they won't disturb you, because that's almost impossible unless you are a sophos, a sage. You will always be little disturbed. But Stoicism can teach you how to deal with those disturbances in such a way that the disturbance is minimized. And I think that's the best you can attain. And in itself, a massive victory. Okay, I hope this was useful. I hope I haven't rambled too much. I will gladly see you again next week for another talk about Stoicism. Bye.